Hey, I'm Jaxon Charlton, and I just wanted to spend a little bit today reading the first two chapters of In the Wake of Gods. Ashun the deserter pulled back on the reins of her horse as they crested a rocky hillside. Settled in the daylit valley below, the city of Hestia shone with the luster of marble streets and towering pillars. The people there had been her enemies once, but she'd abandoned that notion long ago. With her dark hair blowing in her eyes, Ash tightened her grip on the reins. Beautiful though it was, her aching heart prevented Ash from admiring the city any longer. After abandoning her friends in battle a year ago, Ash awoke every morning, burdened by the weight of her cowardice. Standing ahead by the bent trunk of an olive tree was the cyan-tinted ghost of Janus, one of the other conscriptees from her village. His ghost had appeared days after her desertion, wordlessly leading her through the land of their people's enemies. He had no physical form, and, best as she could tell, no one else could see him. Ash did not know how or why Janus haunted her, but she felt she owed a debt to all those that she had failed to protect. By following Janus, she hoped to appease his soul before she received the execution she deserved as a deserter. Ash patted the side of her steed and urged him onward. The former imperial war horse fought against his bridle, and she wondered if he felt the same sense of failure descending into the valley as she did. Her chest tightened as her horse stepped onto the paved streets of Hestia for the first time. A certain sense of finality clawed at her, telling her to run far away from this place. She did not wish for death, though she knew it was the fitting punishment for her crime. Janus' ghost appeared again further within Hestia. His ghost didn't ever actually move. Rather, it appeared and disappeared in different positions. As it had been in life, Janus' face was covered in burn scars. When he died 1 year ago, Ash held him for his final breaths. Now he stood still as ever, pointing down the main balustrade toward a white temple perched atop a hill. Great pillars on its porch supported a lofted roof trimmed with golden engravings. Ash's heart pounded in her chest, and she squeezed her eyes shut. The ghost had haunted her for so long. She could not fail Janus in death as she had in life. If there was an afterlife, she wanted to meet Janus knowing that she had at least done one thing right. At the bottom of the hill, a legionnaire approached her. "Papers," he said. He wore segmented bronze armor and rested a hand on the hilt of the gladius belted to his side. Ash fished through the bag draped over the horse's side and pulled free her proof of citizenship. Papers were forged, of course. She belonged to the island nation of Italy, which was currently at war with the Hestian Empire. If the Imperials knew of her heritage as an islander, she would be punished in ways she'd rather not imagine. "Your purpose here?" the sentinel said. She did not know that answer, only that Janus had led her here. After a moment's hesitation, Ash nodded to the building Janus pointed to earlier. "That's the famed Temple of Xenon, no?" "Aye," he said. "It's as beautiful as I'm sure you've been told. If not, then the crows can have my lying tongue." He returned her documents. "Welcome to Hestia." Ash thanked him, then spurred her horse into the city. It didn't take long before she caught the scent of hay and followed it to a stable. She boarded her horse, then set off on foot for the temple. She passed through the market of Hestia with her head low. She didn't bother looking for Janus' ghost, as he usually didn't appear after giving her such specific instructions. The crowd jostled her as she pressed through toward the temple, its gold images becoming more clear with each step. Already she could see the bearded face of Xenon, god of enlightenment, set in the olive wood door. A crowd gathered in the street, surrounding a man standing atop a stool. He flashed a haughty smile and flourished his hands where everyone could see them. His assistant, a boy of perhaps 12, held up a caged pigeon. A goblet sat on a nearby table, half full of bronze coins. The boy opened the cage, and the Magos made a couple of signs. Magic shimmered in the air around his hands. Controlled by the magic, the pigeon flew from its cage and circled the group. It stopped at a few shoulders to rest and chirp. Ash turned before the bird or its master continued. She had fought many Magoi during the war. Their powers were not nearly so wondrous after having seen the abominations they could perform. In Italy, her people did not use magic. They did not even worship the gods as anything more than servants of holy fate. The Hestians were pagans lost in their traditions. She continued on past the performing Magos and began the climb to the steps of the Temple of Xenon. Some referred to him as the king of gods, but Ash only knew some of the stories of the gods. Reaching the temple's porch, she stopped to admire a mural on display. The white-bearded, topaz-eyed Xenon floated amidst a sea of stars with his hands outstretched. Ash searched for the constellations that her father had taught her. Most of them were there, although in the wrong order. What good would the stars be for navigation if they were not in their proper places? A man in a dark cloak approached from the side. "Salve," he said. "I'm not here to worship," she waved him off. "And I am not here to preach, Ashun." Ash's hand darted to the sheathed dagger hidden beneath her cloak. No one should know her name. She had not used it since her desertion. The man wiped his palms on his robe. "Be not afraid," he said. "Janus led me here as well." Ash stepped back and furrowed her brow. In all her time following him, no one else had been able to see Janus. "I am Pontus," he said, placing a hand to his chest. "I seek only to mend what is frayed." He stepped forward into the light cast by a basket of glowing mushrooms nearby. He had golden, wavy hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes as blue as the Manaean Sea. A scraggly, unkempt beard covered his chin. "If you have come to exact my punishment," Ash said, "I ask only that you end me quickly." Pontus tilted his head. "I am no punisher. Janus sought me for another purpose." Ash paused. "How do you know our names?" "I have spoken with him," he said. "In another place. It is not possible here." "Then where?" If there was a way she could speak to Janus, then she would stop at nothing to do so. Pontus swallowed and broke eye contact with her. "The land of the dead." Janus was a ghost, so it did not seem quite so implausible for there to be a land of the dead. Still, that did not guarantee that Pontus's intentions were pure. She could fulfill Janus' need without the interference of Pontus. When she started to leave, Janus appeared before the steps with his arms crossed and an eyebrow raised. Trails of turquoise smoke wisped off to his body. Ash's heart stopped, throat tightening. It was so vivid. She knew his face so well, and save for the ghastly glow, it was exactly as it had been before, including the burn suffered from a childhood accident. With each blink, she expected him to disappear. She forced herself to look back at Pontus. "I don't want to believe you," she said. "But you see him too, no?" The glow reflected in Pontus' pupils. "I do," he said. "Many others beside Janus need your help. The Hestian Empire has found a way to enter the underworld. They seek to expand their control to even the life beyond this one." Ash opened her mouth in retort before stopping herself. She supposed that if a ghost could haunt her, then what Pontus suggested must be possible. A cool breeze blew past, and Janus's form disappeared into the wind. Ash wished he could have stayed longer, that he would hold her and relieve her burdens, only it could not be so. He was not truly present to help her. "I once shared many of your traits." Pontus ran his fingers along a grooved pillar. "Indecision most of all. Justice is decisive so that I do not have to be." "Is that what you want, then? Do you truly think you understand what that means?" "I do." Ash clenched her fists. She had followed Janus for so long, even though she knew all roads led to her execution. Every boy and girl conscripted to war alongside her had died, and she had no right to be the sole survivor. Death would inevitably consume her as it had them, but even after all she had done, she did not wish for it. She wanted to return home in peace. Ash wanted to be embraced once more and to feel that she deserved to be warm. The last time she had felt so was with Janus when he was alive. Pontus turned his gaze to the former port of Hestia, where navy flags adorned with white seahorses streamed high. It is easy to feel that trying is worthless when the world seems so intent on making our efforts vain. I felt that exhaustion once. Every time I strived to make a difference, the tides battered me and pushed me down into the depths. I gave up on trying. "What changed?" she asked. "I found a belief to uphold worth fighting the waves." Father had told Ash once that fighting only mattered if accompanied by faith. He said even if victory seemed impossible, belief would make the effort mean something. If Janus were truly here, he might say that fate caused Father's words to be echoed by Pontus. "Where do we go?" she said. Pontus winced. He squinted one eye and raised a finger to the imperial palace standing at the base of the mountains. Towering arches carried roofs adorned with navy shingles, and bronze statues shimmered against the reflected night sky. Distant mushrooms glowed like stars in the palace's courtyard gardens. It was likely the most guarded place in all of the Hestian Empire. "There is a portal there to the underworld that we must close," he said. "Janus has told me that you are a talented warrior capable of infiltrating the palace. It will not be easy, but it is right." As though in reply, Janus appeared between them and pointed in the opposite direction toward the Colosseum, another of Hestia's wonders. Pontus tilted his head and reached out. His hand only passed through Janus's form, dewdrops sticking to Pontus's fingers. Ash had tried to touch him before as well, but it never worked. Janus' ghost was made from some kind of mist or fog. Pontus circled around to Janus' front and waved his hands. "Have you forgotten our plan?" he said. "We must not be distracted." Janus disappeared, then reappeared again in the same exact position, pointing to the Colosseum. Pontus threw his hands up and sighed. He focused on Ash. "Disregard him. We must continue to the palace in haste. I fear there is not much time before the Empire's hold of the underworld becomes unshakable. Not enough time to visit the Colosseum, at least." Ash shook her head. "My trust lies with Janus. Will you follow him in all things?" She shifted back onto her heels. For so long she had trusted blindly, hoping that his ghost might give her a way to atone for her mistakes. Only it hadn't. It brought her into the heart of her enemy's lands to a stranger who asked impossible things of her. A knot formed in her throat. She had made a promise when she was conscripted that she would only return with her shield or on it. It meant that she would not abandon her post, even if it meant dying for her cause. That shield was now cast aside, and if she did somehow return to her people, they would enact justice for it. She had assumed for so long that Janus offered another, brighter path. "He has led you to me so that we may stop the Emperor together," Pontus said. He reached for Ash's arm, but she pulled it away. "I, too, trust Janus, and he has told me that I will require your help for what is to follow. Let us not be divided." "He has not commanded me to go to the palace," Ash said. "Even if he did, it would be my death." Without another word, Ash resolutely began the descent. Behind her, she heard a few annoyed mutters before Pontus followed her toward the Colosseum. Chapter 2. Castor leaned over the railing of the Pandia, his dark curls falling in his eyes. Below, 85 oars from the lower decks chopped at the Manaean Sea as a powerful current tugged the trireme. The dark shadow of a monster lurked beneath the surf, and at that, Castor grinned. He knew that the gods had made him for this. "The others have started to call it Charybdis," Priam said. Golden brown hair bound behind his head, Priam stood at Castor's side, tying himself to a post. Like everyone else on the ship, Priam wore sturdy pants and a willowy shirt. It was less formal than the togas that most sailors aboard other ships wore, but in the business of slaying monsters, comfort mattered more than the tradition. "I assume you now call it that as well," Castor said. "You mustn't believe their superstitions." "It's not a superstition," Castor raised an eyebrow. "You believe it, though. Otherwise, you wouldn't be tying yourself up." "I want to be secure when this fight starts. What's the fault in that?" Priam fumbled with the knot until it slipped loose, and he dropped the rope. Even though he had spent his entire life on the seas, Priam was awful with knots. About the only thing Priam excelled at on the ship was rowing, but he always seemed to find another chore to do instead. "Fine," Priam said, bending down to snatch up the rope. "At least the name distinguishes it from every other monster we slay." "I slay," Castor said, "and it makes no difference to me. They all die the same." Priam narrowed his eyes. "Aren't you afraid of them?" Castor laughed. "Never." Priam sighed and gave up on trying to tie himself up. "I wonder if I'd still be afraid if I was a Magos like you." Castor looked down and flexed his hands. Anyone could make signs to draw upon the magic left to humanity by the gods. Indeed, Castor was better at it than anyone had ever been, but with the right knowledge and discipline, others could replicate his skill. He yearned for more, the power to work true miracles. A geyser erupted from a ways out. The bellow that followed caused Priam to clamp his hands over his ears. Castor didn't. He wanted to hear the sounds of his prey. Beneath the surface of the sea, water started to pour into the monster's huge mouth. A foaming whirlpool started to spin, drawing the Pandia inward toward the source. Wood creaked and groaned as the trireme turned, bronze ram reflecting the noonday sun. Sailors drew their oars back into the trireme's belly. The vortex pulled the ship with primal strength, and Castor knew that he would only have so much time before the monster swallowed the Pandia. He welcomed the challenge. Castor rested a hand on Priam's shoulder. "No one would be afraid if they were like me," he said. He leapt over the side of the Pandia and dove into the Manaean Sea. He broke into the darkness, salt water filling his nostrils and eyes. As he kicked his legs and returned to the surface, Castor formed his hands into the shape of a diamond, then spread his fingers out to the side. Magic from his surroundings coalesced around his arm with prickling warmth before rushing out to obey his commands. It was Terras, the season of beasts, meaning that signs having to do with monsters and creatures were easiest. Other signs could be done too, but not efficiently. It usually wasn't even worth it to try. The seasons were caused by the ebbs and flows of the invisible current of magic that flowed through the cosmos. As certain parts of the current came closer, certain aspects of magic came through more strongly, It also meant that only a limited amount of magic was available in any given time or place according to the current's flow. That meant Castor had to do the best with what he had. A hippocampus appeared and lifted Castor out of the water. The beast was like a seahorse, only much larger and with a mane of white hair across its back. It swam toward the center of the whirlpool. The hippocampus kept control of their pace, despite the powerful currents. Castor held onto the hippocampus with one hand. The spray of the ocean blew around him as he looked back to the Pangaea, where most of the crew shielded their eyes from the sun to watch him. He gripped the hippocampus with his thighs. He signed to strengthen Charybdis. If it wanted water, then it could have it. Eventually it would become too much. The hippocampus started to falter and neigh. It struggled to stay above the surf as Castor signed, continually infusing Charybdis with magic. The scent of the monster's putrid breath filled Castor's nose, and he could hear the cascading of water plunging into its belly. It gargled its pain. Castor paused to look over his shoulder when he noticed that the Pangaea was being dragged in far more swiftly than he had expected. The sound of straining timbers and yelling sailors rose above the rush of the tide. There was only so much magic in his surroundings, and Castor had already used most of it. He muttered a curse and bent over the neck of his hippocampus. Castor could feel a ripple as Charybdis contracted its muscles, but with so much water filling it, it couldn't draw the breath it needed to expel another geyser. Though the sea still raged, the monster fell silent. It would soon die. Except the whirlpool still had momentum. The Pangaea circled behind Castor as though it were chasing him. He raised his hands and signed to force the water to still, a difficult spell, particularly during this season and without much magic available. Shimmering droplets of magic burned his skin, and he screamed. He'd not yet finished his sign when something grabbed him around the ankle and pulled him underwater. He fought against the darkness to pull the tentacle off of him. Thoughts of the Pangaea and the hippocampus escaped his mind as he searched for light and air. He started to lose strength and sputter. Castor had wanted to perform a miracle so desperately. He wanted to see Charybdis killed by its own gluttony, but he never once thought about the Pangaea becoming trapped in the whirlpool. He should have known to have the ship stay further away. The tentacle pulled him away from Charybdis. Castor forced his eyes open despite the stinging salt. The creature in front of him gave off a pulsing glow from its bulbous head. A second of its tentacles grabbed Castor. A dark stripe lined the back of the creature's tentacles, something about it sparking a sense of familiarity in Castor. He had seen creatures like this before, but only in drawings. They were the sacred animals of Cassius, god of the seas and magic. Until now, Castor had thought krakens only existed as myths. Castor stopped his fingers from making signs that he could not cast. The gods had sent the kraken to save Castor. By no strength of his own, Castor breached the surface of the sea. He coughed while treading water. The current had mostly slowed, and Castor could see the Pangaea unmoving a ways away. Dozens of sailors stood at its railings and searched for Castor. "Here!" Castor's voice was hoarse, and he had not the strength to wave his arms. The creature let go of Castor and propelled itself forward. Again, Castor noticed dark stripes on his body that he knew he should recognize. The creature brightened its glow. It blinked its light to draw the attention of the Pangaea. Castor averted his gaze from the blinding light and floated on his back. After only a few minutes, he started to hear the chatter of sailors. "Toss it already," someone said, a voice followed by a plop. When Castor turned to swim for the rope, the kraken ceased its glowing, then disappeared underwater. The crew of the Pangaea lifted him up and onto the deck. A sailor grabbed Castor under the shoulder, helping him take his first few steps. Harmonia, Triarch of the Pangaea, stood amidst the crew and tapped her foot on the deck. Unlike the rest of the crew, she wore a toga and sandals. Her high cheekbones and thin lips made her appear more regal than she actually was. Priam rushed to Castor's side, grinning and laughing. "That light," he said. "It's your most brilliant work yet." The crew echoed their agreement. They hadn't seen the kraken then. Good. Castor did not want to encourage their superstitions. He could have the credit for himself. Harmonia stood up straighter and placed her hands behind her back. "Aye," she said. "Well done. Alas, next time I might like to observe from afar." "As would I," Castor said. "But I've been hired for this purpose. This time I thought to share the danger." He paused and puffed his chest up. "Though none came as close to Charybdis as I did." "Charybdis?" Priam snickered. "So you do like the name." There was a cheer and many claps on the back. Castor winced. They chanted Castor's name and spit off the side of the ship at Charybdis' corpse. Despite his best effort, it seemed that Castor only stoked their superstitions. After some celebration, Castor shuffled off to his cabin, Priam close behind him. "Leave me," Castor waved a hand. Why not heal yourself? Priam asked. Then you could drink with us. Castor glowered at Priam. Healing humans is a secret of the gods, he said. Priam only nodded and smiled. He was a few cycles older than Castor, but in times like this he seemed so childish. You could drink with us anyways. Castor grabbed the door handle, ready to shut it in Priam's face. Fine. Priam raised his hands and took a step back. But there is something I must say. I think that perhaps one day you could be the greatest magos in all of Pelagios. Castor rolled his eyes. I already am, he said through his hoarse throat. He shut the door and grabbed his journal from his desk so that he could write a report for his teacher. Castor was the greatest magos in the world, but there was more to achieve. There remained a difference between his power and that of the gods. He sought to close that gap. Anything less would be a failure. The gods had saved him today, but next time, the miracle would be of his own making. Thanks for listening to this reading of In the Wake of Gods. The book's available on June 2nd on Amazon. Thank you.